Okay, this is going to be the harvest market file that we worked on in chapter 3, and I'm just very briefly going to go over some of the things that we did in there, including capturing or bringing a couple of images in after making selections on them, and then going over some stuff over here in the layer stack, and then addressing a couple of things that we've discussed by email. So I just want to go ahead and get started on that for time's sake. I'm going to first select this banana, which I pulled off the internet. I chose this image because it has a nice white background, and but because it's also got some other sort of challenges going on here as well. So I'm just going to go ahead right away and use the magic wand tool. You could use the magnetic lasso tool for this as well, but I think for this demonstration we're going to just use magic wand, and then I'm going to show you a couple things with that. So ultimately we want the banana, so I think first what I'm going to do is select the background, because that's going to give me a much quicker and more complete selection, basically around the banana but not including the banana, and then you'll see we've got this area here that needs to be included, so I'll hold the shift key for that. And that will just go ahead and add that selection to the selection I made already. And then we've got to deal with this little area here where the banana is kind of chunked, or it's kind of chunked into the banana. And so I'm going to grab the lasso tool for that. And what we're going to do, since we're selecting the background and not the banana at this point, I'm going to hold the Alt key down, and that's going to give me the minus symbol there on my lasso tool. And that's going to signify that I'm going to subtract this from the background. So I'm just going to kind of go down the edge here carefully, and then make a general circle around that, and then let go, and you'll see that it's added that part of the banana. I'm also going to do that. Call me picky if you want, but I'm going to do that for this little piece up here as well, because believe it or not, that would show. And now we basically have everything but the banana selected. And so in order to get the banana, I'm just going to go ahead and go up to the select menu, and then I'm going to choose the inverse option. And then just notice that you can do Shift Control I as well if you want to do the shortcut key. So after we've done that, we now have the banana, and then basically we just need to get this banana now over into our harvest market file. And to do that, I need to switch tools, because right now I still have the lasso tool, and that will not grab the actual image over there. So if we grab that move tool, I'll click and hold here, and then I'm just going to drag that banana, and then as we get up here to the harvest market file, I need to have the cursor over that tab, and that switches the files for you. And then once I have my cursor back here in the center, I'm going to just let go, and that will drop the banana right into that image. Let's go ahead and we're going to do that with this apple. The apple, again, nice crisp background. You always want to have that if you can. You probably will not be able to always find images like that, but the idea is to find that if you can, and then also to be downloading images that are a higher resolution, so that when you bring them into your images, that you don't have to basically upscale them, because doing that will cause them to become pixelated, and you never want that to happen. Or almost never. I guess I really just can't think of a time when you would. But so again, just try to find higher resolution images to bring in, and then so we'll go ahead and I'm just going to grab that same tool, magic wand. I'm going to select the background. We have a nice crisp edge around the apple here, and so I'm going to go ahead and select the inverse again, and grab my move tool, and drag that apple back up to the harvest market layer, and then drop it. So now we have the banana, and we have the apple in here. You can see the apple has slight fringe around the edges. So I'm going to go ahead with the apple layer selected. I'm going to come up here to the layer menu, down to the bottom for matting, and then defringe. And I'm just going to leave it at 1 pixel, because it's just basically one row there, it looks like, and that should take care of it. And as you can see, that pretty much did. I'm going to drag the apple out here in the center a little bit more too, because what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and use that blur tool that I've mentioned to soften the edge around the apple now that we've defringed it. So the key to it here is to have a small diameter brush, which you can change here by clicking that little triangle there, and then you have size options and some different brush options in there. And then you also want to probably start with a strength that is something under 80%. I'm going to go ahead and use 50% for now. And then the goal is not to have the brush tip completely on the apple, but to maybe just get that first row or two of pixels on the apple around the edge. So I'm going to click and hold and then sort of drag it around that very edge of the apple. And I'm going to do this a little bit quicker than you might want to, but I'm going to do that just for the sake of time. And you can see really in these areas right now that that's really kind of blurring that edge or softening it. Alright, and now the next thing we want to do with this apple is we want to resize it, because right now it's gigantic and it's filling up too much of the image. So the other thing that we've talked about is using the transform tool. You can do that through the edit menu and then transform and then scale. Or the other option, which I think is a better option, is just to do the control key with the T key. That's T as in Tom. And what that does is it gives you all of the transform options instead of just scale. So with the apple, if I grab it here in the corner, I can actually skew it and warp it and size it all at the same time. And then if I were to let go, I would also have the rotate option. But for now, since I want the apple to resize with the same proportions, I'm going to hold the shift key down, and that will cause it to resize correctly all the way down. So I'm going to get that basically to a size that looks good. Then I'm going to grab in the box somewhere and drag it up to an area that I think will be good. And I'm even going to drag it off the edge a little bit, just for a somewhat cool effect, I guess. I don't know if that's really an effect, but just to kind of change it up a little bit. And now once I've made that change and I'm satisfied with everything, you can go up here and we're going to click on this button here, which appears after you've made changes to an image, and that commits the change. And you can see now the bounding box is gone. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over here in my layers to the banana, and I'm just going to go quickly with the blur tool around that, and I'll just go right around again those outside edges, and I'm probably hitting a little more than I even need to, but I just want you to get the basic idea of what we're doing and what it does. And let's see, I'm probably going to lose it a bit there, so I'm going to collapse that for a second. Go around this edge here, and then we want to go around this inside edge here as well. Okay, so, and then the banana really didn't need to be defringed. It has a nice edge there, so we're going to leave that as is. I'm going to grab my move tool again, and then I'm going to do a control T, because I need to size the banana as well. I'm going to size that down to something close to the apple, and then I'm going to move it up by the apple. And you can see here as I do that, the peel of the banana is appearing behind the apple, and that's because it's falling lower than the apple in the layer stack here, and the background being the bottom of the stack, the apple being the top of the stack, and so that's why the apple falls on top of everything in the image as well. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and rotate. You see the cursor changes to kind of a bendy arrow there on each end, and that allows you to just sort of rotate it, and I'm going to freeform rotate it without holding the shift key, and just kind of make it wrap basically around the apple. And then I'm going to commit those changes, and then I want to drag the banana above the apple in the layer stack here, so that peel, I want that to actually sort of hit over the apple there. Let's see, and I'm going to control T again really quick, because I think I over-rotated that. Alright, I'll leave it like that. So now we kind of have the banana overlapping the apple. and both images have been cleaned up, defringed, and the blur tool was used to soften the edges. And now we just need to get your text to appear on the image here as well, since it's down in the layer stack. So first thing I'm going to do is create a group to put my text in, and I'm going to name that, believe it or not, text. And you can name those whatever you like as it fits whatever's going in there, but you do want to name them. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this first text layer, hold down the shift key, same principle here, hold the shift key down and it will add to the selection, and then I can just drag all three of those right over the text group and let go. And now you can see in two ways that they're there, because they're at the top now and they're showing over here in the image, and then they're slightly indented here, so the other layer icons are still, they're a little bit to the left. And then we can collapse that group so that we have less information to deal with here in the layer stack. And putting them in the group and having the group at the top makes a difference. If I drag this group down below the market image here, you can see it disappears, so we want to keep it up there. The last thing I want to do is I'm going to expand this again, and I'm going to move this text around a little bit. And what I want to do is these have a nice drop shadow on them, so I want that to fall over the banana there. And then the harvest market, I'm going to drag that down here to kind of get it out of the way of the action in our background, just to help the image a little bit. And I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully this will still be helpful for future files. I know we've already done the harvest market assignment, but you'll be doing a lot of this, and this should just give you a basic idea of what we're trying to achieve in terms of image size, placement, things you want to think about in terms of your overall layout on your images and stuff like that. So hopefully that was helpful, and look forward to some feedback. Send me an email and let me know if this was helpful, and then we'll hopefully have some other videos coming soon.